Chapter 7, Management Communication Patterns, Rules of Conversation. This chapter takes a look at those patterns, that is how managers and agents interact. We discuss trade-offs and the profound impact that the presence of absence of a certain management interface capabilities has own aspects such as efficiency of management communication, management application scale and performance, and the robustness of management against error. Common management protocols. Language of management. When we have completed this chapter, you should be able to explain the different layers that a manager interface can be decomposed into. Differentiate between pooling based on event-based management and explain their impact on management application and management devices. Assess the impact of the presence or absence of certain management interface capabilities on management application. Understand the difference between management and database transaction. Distinguish different categories of management events and explain their specific relevance for network management. Layer of management interaction. In all network systems, communications are structured into layers. These include management communication. Let's talk briefly about how management communications are generally structured into layers. That is, the different rules and functions that you will find in layer of management protocol stack. The topmost layer of communication stack is generally the application layer, which provides communication applications with services and communication primitives that they can use to directly communicate with each other. Example of communication applications are email, transfer protocols, SMTF or file transfer. An example of protocol is a file transfer protocol, FTP. Application layer protocols are generally defined without concern for the physical characteristics of the underlying network. For example, wireless or Ethernet, or how to route the data across multiple intermediate hops. Network management is another example of communication applications. Accordingly, management protocols are fundamentally application layer protocols as well. Therefore, the manager-agent interactions are described in the remainder of the chapter take place in the application layers. Management communications can themselves be divided into several aspects. Some of them actually from management communication sublayers. For example, one of the layers, the manager and agent need to exchange management messages that represent management requests and responses. At another layer, they need to interpret the information payload that is carried as part of those management messages. In addition, managers and agents need to agree on the transport over which to carry the management messages. In other words, a management protocol by itself is not sufficient to establish interoperability between managers and agents and describe the interaction. A manager protocol stack is needed. The layers of this stack are described in the following subsection going from bottom to top. The bottom layer concerns the management transfer and take care of the communication aspect that the management independent. The remaining three layers are in many cases addressed within the same management protocol. However, they do address separate. Transport. The transport layer is fundamentally agnostic and independent of the management protocol. It resides at layer 4 of the OSI reference model and is the first layer that provides end-to-end communication service for the communication system. However, many management protocols make assumptions and impose restriction on the protocols that they use as transport. Hence, specification of management interface always requires that the transport protocols being used also be specified. Example of transport protocols that management protocols often use are the User Diagram Protocol, UDP, Transport Connection Protocol, TCP, Block Intensible Exchange Protocol, BEEP, Secure Shell, SSH, and Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. Remote operation. The remote operation layer offers three distinct functions that complete and perform important services for the management operation layer in the top association control. Remote operation support, management services scheduling, introspection, other management operation information retrieval. Association controls deals with how establish and tear down management session that is management association between manager and agent. The reason is that they are management specific aspects that the transport connection is not aware of but that require a mutual understanding between manager and agent. For example, a manager might need to be aware of the management capabilities that an agent provides. Manager and agent might want to be negotiate a particular functional profile to use. In addition, an agent might want to determine in advance which management functions the manager will be allowed to invoke based on its user privileges. Accordingly, management association could be short-lived, although as a concept they are still valid. Remote operation support involves the mechanism that is used to wrap and delineate management requests and responses in communication exchanges. Managing request response IDs. These IDs are tags that allows application to associate responses and requests. Management protocols are generally asynchronous to allow managers to issue several requests without needing to await responses from previous requests. One reason for this is that some management requests trigger longer running operation of the agent if a second request does not depend on the outcome of the management. Layer of management interaction. First request. The agent might decide to service the second request before the first one has finished executing in response to the request out of order. As a result, when a manager receives a management response, the manager needs to be able to tell which management request the response belongs to. For this to happen to the agent needs to include the ID of the original request in each response. To ensure that it uses a different ID for each management request that is sent. Fragmentation are assembly as management protocol data units, PDUs. Management PDU is a message of management protocol. It contains a management payload such as a management request and request parameter along with some control information that is typically contained in a message header. In many cases, the underlying transport imposes a maximum of PDU size that can be transferred in one shot. To shield the user of management operation from those limitations, a fragmentation assembly function can break up a management PDU. For example, the request by a manager retrieve a subsystem configuration can be very short, yet the response returned by the agent might contain substantial amount of data and hence be very long. Without the fragmentation and reassembly function, some management requests may simply be answered with a response for too long. Errors requiring the manager to break up the management request. Because of such limitations, in many cases, management protocols either require a particular transport that is known to meet certain requirements or articulate requirements that a transport must fulfill before it can be used in conjunction with a management protocol. Encoding. Finally, entails some management information that constitutes the payload of management operation is flattened and encoded in a PDU. For example, when a value of an attribute of a managed object is included in a management request, the value needs to be represented somehow. For example, a string of the character 5 and 1 or an octet that contains a binary representation of 51. Of course, in addition to the values, the attributes that the values belongs to, object identifiers, and parameter names of operations all need to be carried as part of the message. SNMP is defined in the ASN 1, Abstract Syntax Notation 1. Basic encoding rules. Another encoding that is rapidly gaining popularity is extensible markup language, XML. Other encodings are plain human-readable text, used in conjunction with the cyclog messages that agents use to convey events, and specialized binary encodings which can be used in the proprietary protocols for applications that are very performance sensitive. Management operations. The management operations layer is at the core of management protocol stack. It provides the actual management primitives, the base operations that are used to manage the network. Layer of management interaction. The specific primitives that are available depend on the specific management protocol. Management protocols are covered in details in the next chapter. The concept of those general operations and their use in management communication patterns needs to be distinguished from their specific instantiation as part of a particular management protocol. Management primitives tend to be fairly generic in nature. More specific about the particular operations are carried in the management information that accompanies them, as well as in addition parameters that are used to qualify the operation. Typically, primitives include this. Read primitives as used to retrieve management information. Write primitives as used to change or otherwise influence management of information. Event reporting primitives are used to communicate the occurrence of certain events by management agents. Action primitives cause the managed device to do something such as to perform a self-test. Less common primitives includes acknowledgement for the receipt of management request. Indicates that the request was received and will be served and responded to in due time. And special purpose primitives that are tied to very specific function. Management services. The management stack can include a fourth layer in the top of the primitives that are offered by management protocols. The management services layer. Management services layer are not really a layer because management operations are still accessible to management application on top and are not hidden underneath management services. Instead, they constitute an additional offering to management application that builds itself on the management operation layer. Management services combine the management primitives. Management communication patterns, rules of conversation. Ay, mali. Ano yan? Sabi ko kasi yung title lang ano natin eh. Management communication patterns, rules of conversation. Sabi ko yung ano. Ay, yung pala pinos. Hindi nga, sabi ko nga. Management operation layer with additional capabilities. For example, they introduce special operation parameters, values, or special purpose management information that provide a management service above and beyond the functionality that a manager primitives. A subscription service that allow management applications to subscribe to specific types of events based on a certain filter criteria, such as all events pertaining to a specific port, or all events of a certain event type. For example, this service might be provided by completing management primitives with objects in a MIT that represent the filter criteria to be applied. A remote scheduling service that allow management application to set up, approve, that periodically executes a management operation at certain times without requiring the management application to issue a new request each time the service could be provided by completing management primitives with parameter or MID variables that represent scheduling information, such as start time and end time and frequency. Manager-initiated interaction. For request, and response. We start with interactions that are initiated by manager. Interactions that are initiated by the agent are the subject of the next section. The patterns of interaction between managers and agents that are described are largely independent of any particular management protocol. The most general interaction pattern between managers and agents consists of exchange of requests and responses. The agent subsequently sends a response that includes a return code indicating whether the request could be successfully executed or whether an error occurred. The pattern of request and response is often also referred as a transactional interaction. The type of request being made, the management information that the request applies to, or alternatively parameter that carry information needed to carry out the request. Additional housekeeping information, for example, an identifier for the request of security credential such as authentication information to verify the identity of requester. Depending on the type of request, sometimes parameter with additional qualifiers can be included that specify addition behavior, such as what to do in case a request initially fails. Upon receipt of the request, an agent first checks whether the request is valid. For example, it parses the request to see if it understands the request. It examines the manager's security credentials to verify the manager is who he say he is, and it validates the manager is indeed authorized for this type of request. If the request is not valid, the agent sends response immediately to indicate failure. Otherwise, the agent serves the request and, upon its completion, construction a response with the result of request. A response code indicating whether the request was successful in case the request was not. The result of the request, for example, the information that was requested. Additional housekeeping information, such as the identifier of the original request, to help the manager match the response to the original request that is sent. In the course of performing a particular management task, manager and the agent often exchange multiple requests and responses. Information retrieval, pooling and pooling-based management. Perhaps the most prevalent type of request-response management interaction involves requests for information by a manager in which the manager interrogates the agent. The basic pattern is very straightforward. The manager asks the agent for a particular piece or pieces of management information. The agent checks the validity of the request and retrieves the requested information. The agent then responds, providing a request information in the response of an error response code that indicates the reason the request could be not fulfilled. An error message is sent in the case the agent does not understand the request or does not know the type of management information that the manager is asking for. As you shall see, different considerations for how optimized retrieval apply in each case, resulting in different interaction patterns. Request for configuration information. Configuration information that a manager requests can be information about the logical and physical configuration of the device. Changes to configuration information are initiated not by the agent itself, but the outside, whether it is a technician pulling a line card from a device or a management application configuring an interface. Because changes are so infrequent, this information is typically requested only rarely. Not because management applications don't need it, but because the application can catch this information in their own database. In addition, often changes are effected to the management system itself, in which case it's already known about those changes. By maintaining a cache of the management device's configuration information, with the management application needs to refer to this information, it does not have to send request to the device. Requests for configuration information are thus minimized. There are several advantages to this. Management traffic over the network is reduced. Load that is imposed to the device to respond to such queries is reduced. Manager-initiated interaction, request, and response. Performance of the management application is improved. This is the most noticeable when the agent is remote and needs to be reached over a wide area network. 1. Thus introducing additional communication delay that do not apply when accessing the local database. With the management application for stake management ownership of a device, to store the information in the management application hatch for the first time. So there is a reason to believe that the hatch is tail, that is the information in the database is out of date and needs to be reconciled. This is the case when the operation unexpectedly fails that assume a certain configuration as a prerequisite. Another example is the receipt of event message indicating that the configuration might have changes. In some cases, just before services are provided over the network, to ensure that the information about the devices that the services provide over is indeed current and that everything goes smoothly. Request for operation, data, and in-state information. Another type of management information that can requested concerns operation data and state information. As discussed in the previous chapter, state information differ from configuration information in a number of important ways. For example, it is owned by the managed device itself and cannot be modified by the management application. By its nature, operational data and state information can change frequently. In fact, some information changes extremely frequently. For example, a counter for octet on an outgoing link. Some counters can be incremented millions or over billions of times per hour. So, a 32-bit integer to represent them is not enough. Each value range might be exhausted in a matter of minutes. A 32-bit integer can hold only roughly 4 billion discrete values after all. Other information will not change as frequently but might still change unexpectedly. For example, the operation state a device that is highly available should be stable for months. For these reasons, operational data and state information generally tend not to be represented in a management application management. Management information is closely tied to monitoring the network and does not lend itself to being stored in a static cache. Whenever an application is interested in a view of state of device, it must pull it for current snapshot of operational data and device state, which is very different from configuration information that can generally simplified be retrieved from a database. Pulling a managed device for operational database and state information is generally used in scenarios such as the following. Device viewing. A remote user wants to obtain a real-time view of a device requiring a snapshot of the most current information. Troubleshooting and diagnostics. Erratic behavior has been observed in the network. An application needs to obtain current data from the device to determine the cause. Hotspot pulling. A particular device is under scrutiny and specific observation. Its state information therefore is pulled repeatedly over an extended period of time. It is also referred to as periodic pulling. In some cases, the pull data is used to plot a curve that updates every second or so, similar to plotting the chart of a stock over the trading day. This makes pulling adequate for certain management tasks. After all, the device's reason. For example, if the purpose of continuously pulling a state is to avoid missing a certain condition when it occurs, A shift from polling-based to event-based interaction patterns is advised. The idea behind event-based interaction patterns is to have the agent automatically notify the manager when certain conditions of interest occur without requiring the manager to continuously pull. Pulling is not just expensive, but it might be inadequate for other reasons. The condition might be missed despite the continuous pulling. After all, even if pulling is frequent, it occurs at discrete time intervals. If the condition were to hold for only a brief period of time between two polling intervals, the polling application would not detect it. Polling-based monitoring that misses an important condition. The delay until the condition is recognized might be unacceptable. If the condition occurs and the previous polling cycle just missed it, the management application will have to wait until the next polling interval to detect it. In one case, the polling occurs only at times T6, T12, and T18. In the other case, it occurs at every interval. Coarse and fine polling samples. In real life, instead of constantly watching a pot while heating water for a cup of tea, you can use a teapot that whistles to alert you when it boils. Similarly, many devices offer capabilities to alert a management application if a certain pre-programmed condition occurs, such as when a gauge crosses a certain threshold. If the purpose of continuous polling state is to observe trends over time, polling is effective but still expensive. This solution is adequate when there is no need for the data to be provided in near real time. Historical data collection of the devices as opposed to polling by a manager. The computation overhead is higher than in the case of the first option. Management communication takes place at every polling interval. However, at a minimum, the redundant requests are taken out of the equation, which provides at least some relief. Bulk requests and incremental operations. There are two options for the granularity of the request. The first option is to simply ask for a specific piece of management information. In a variation, several items can be retrieved in the same request but still need to be called out explicitly. In this case, not every piece of management information is separately named. Instead, bulk retrieval asks for all information that meets a certain criteria, such as all operational data of a line card or all configuration information. This is more efficient when it would otherwise be required to go through many iterations to retrieve the desired information, such as when every piece of operational data or all configuration information is to be retrieved. When management information is arranged into a conceptual management information tree, one way to retrieve information in bulk is to simply ask for an entire subtree. The scope of an operation is generally an entire subtree. For example, everything that is related to a particular communications feature, such as a routing protocol, or everything that is contained under a particular port or communication subsystem. Fancy scope operations allow managers to additionally specify filters. For example, to apply only to manage objects in a subtree that are of a certain type, such as device ports. A scope applied to a management information tree in a IMIB. In the case of configuration information, another way to retrieve information in bulk that is widely supported and that does not require scoping is to retrieve the device's configuration file, a file that contains the complete configuration. Historical information. Historical information concerns snapshots of management information, typically performance data such as bandwidth utilization or packet drop rates that are taken at certain intervals in time. Collecting and analyzing these snapshots can reveal valuable information for network providers. For example, they may be able to determine how the use of the network varies over the time of day or the day of the week, or they might observe trends in the change of utilization of network. This helps network providers tune the network and eliminate network vulnerabilities such as bottlenecks and plan for how to evolve and upgrade the network. The way in which management applications use historical data impacts the way in which applications from managed devices retrieve such data. MID, or what we call Manager Initiated Interactions. Request and response data and state information, although on the surface each case simply involves retrieval of management information. Considerations for how to optimize this retrieval in the interaction patterns. These results depend greatly on the type of information retrieved. Pooling overload. Having a management application pull devices across the entire network every 15 minutes can be a daunting task and requires a lot of horsepower. Robustness. A working management connection and the management application are required for the pooling approach to work. Calibration of interval length. Perhaps most important, historical information that is collected through pooling is not necessarily accurate because it is hard to guarantee that pooling at the device actually occurs at the precise interval. Synchronization of interval start times. Management applications typically want the time interval boundaries of the historical data to be the same across different devices. For example, the interval could always start at the top of the hour. This makes the data more comparable across the network than in the case of rolling boundaries. For example, device 1 at 12, 12:15, 12:30, and 12:45. Device 2 at 12:02, 12:17, 12:32, and 12:47, and so on. Trying to achieve a synchronization of polling intervals across the network with a centralized management system is next to impossible. A preferable approach is therefore to set up automatic collection at the device. This means that a management agent allows a management application or network administrator to configure which data will be recorded through snapshots and at what intervals. This way, the number and frequency of management requests and responses are reduced by orders of magnitude. Configuration operations. In the second major category of management operations, the configuration operations. Configuration operations aim to change configuration information, specifically parameter settings that in some way affect the managed device behavior. As with pooling operations for management information, configuration operations generally follow a request-response pattern. However, there can be differences in how requests and responses are applied, resulting in certain management communication patterns that are specific to configuration operations, as outlined in the section. Failure recovery. Here are some examples under failure recovery. The device might not support a particular configuration option that is requested. It might currently not have the required system to resources to fulfill the request, or the request might conflict with some other settings. For example, what does the management application do if no response is received within a certain time frame? This is a typical scenario and illustrates what needs to be considered.
If the management application was retrieving management information, it could simply send another request and no harm would be done. With a configuration request, however, it might well make a difference whether the same operation is performed once or if it is not performed twice. One way in which a manager can distinguish between those scenarios is when the agent offers a management function that allows the manager to inquire about the status of a management request. Give the request ID, response size, and the request scoping. As was described earlier in the case of scope management information retrieval, one small request can result in the return of a substantial amount of information. Of course, in some cases, bulk configuration is still desirable, such as when there are many instances of a particular type of managed resource on a device that are all to be configured in the same way. One example is voice gateways that have a large number of DAs or ports that terminate voice connections. In the example, the alternative obviates the need for scope configuration altogether. Instead of modeling the echo cancellation setting on a pure DSO basis, it is also possible to build a larger scope into the parameter itself. This way, there is no longer a need for a large number of individual configuration requests. They can all be replaced by a single request. Dealing with configuration files. A third difference between management interactions for information retrieval and interactions for configuration operations is rooted in the way in which configuration information is maintained in the device. This makes the overall configuration easier to handle. For example, the request for a configuration operation, then preparing a configuration file that contains the configuration that is to take effect, downloading this configuration file on the device, explicitly telling the device to switch over the current configuration to the new configuration in the new file. For example, the need to deal with configuration files explicitly allows for a very straightforward implementation of configuration backup under store functionality. In many cases, such as with Cisco IOS routers, a hybrid approach is applied. The router reboots not from the last configuration that it had in volatile memory, but from a configuration stored in a file, that is, in non-volatile memory or non-volatile memory. For example, imagine that a configuration request is executed that causes a router effectively to crash or inadvertently bring down a communication service that had been working just fine. In this case, it will be a big advantage if upon reboot the device does not apply the most recent configuration parameter setting, which cause the corruption of communication devices. For example, if the purpose of continuously pulling a state is to avoid missing a certain condition when it occurs, a shift from pulling-based to event-based interaction patterns is advised. The idea behind event-based interaction patterns is to have the agent
Actions. Some interaction cause the device to perform a certain action. Examples are a request for the device to reboot itself, a request to perform a self-test, or a request to ping another device to see if it can be reached. Those interactions are very straightforward. A request is sent to perform the action, and a response is sent that indicates the outcome of the action or any error that were encountered. One special case occurs when performing the action might take some time. This could lead to problems. If there has been some kind of fatal error, the manager might have to wait in vain indefinitely, so perhaps it should reissue the request. However, this could be problematic in itself if the agent is still working on the original request, causing it to repeat the same action even though it is not needed. A long-running request. In such cases, it is useful if the management agent provides the means to modify the request, response interaction, and effectively split into multiple parts. The essential response merely indicates that the request has been accepted by the device without indicating the outcome of the action. A second request is then necessary to inquire about the status of the execution of the request and to retrieve the results. The original request can simply be referenced by its original request ID, providing another way in which this housekeeping information that we introduced earlier provides useful. Management transactions. Sometimes management applications would like not having to issue the request or response pair for each configuration operation or management action, but instead be able to group several commands together and have them execute together as one unit. This is often the case when services need to be provisioned over a network. Provisioning a DSL subscriber service. The customer connects his equipment, that is his DSL modem, to a wall outlet that on the service providers and leads to the port of a DSL access multiplexer or DSLAM. This port is referred to as the customer-facing port. The DSLAM in turn uses another port, the network-facing port, to connect through asynchronous transfer mode or ATM network to aggregation router. This aggregation router actually connects the customer to the IP network. For the DSL service to work, the following is required. A connection needs to be set up between the DSLAM and aggregation router, more precisely between the network-facing port of the DSLM and a DSLAM facing port of the aggregation router. Also on the DSLAM, the customer-facing port needs to be cross-connected to the network-facing port with a connection to the aggregation router. The provisioning application needs to first check the DSLAM to see whether a network-facing port is available. If this is the case, it proceeds with the following two configuration requests directed at the DSLAM. Configuration request number 1. Cross-connect the available network-facing port with a customer-facing port. Configuration number 2. Configure the network-facing port as the endpoint of the connection that points to aggregation router at the other end. In addition, the provisioning application needs to provision a connection endpoint at the aggregation router, which will ignore for this moment. At this point, we are intersected only in the configuration operation on the DSLAM. None of the configuration operations by themselves provides any value. Either both or neither is needed. Therefore, if one of them fails, so should the other. Likewise, it would be a problem if between the check on whether the network-facing port is available and its cross-connection with the customer-facing port. Another application would configure the same port for different purpose. The corresponding requests should therefore ideally all be executed as if they were a single operation. They constitute a management transaction. In effect, the transaction defines a new operation invisible at the device. The concept of transaction is well known in the context of database management system. Transactions are the foundation of many applications that we take for granted. Rules of conversation, a classical example is that of a banking application that supports ATM, in this case, not ATM networks, but automated teller machines. When a customer wants to withdraw money from the ATM, it involves several steps. The bank checks whether there is enough money in the account. If not, the request is rejected. If so, the bank pays out the money requested and subtracts the amount from the original amount in the account. Now, if it were not for database transaction, in a distributed scenario, it would be possible that the same amount is paid twice by the bank but subtracted only once from the account. For example, if two persons were to withdraw money at the same time, in both cases, the bank would first check how much money is in the account and then not only pay both and but also calculate the new account balance by subtracting the disbursed amount from the original account balance. Because in both cases, the identical steps are performed, the bank would end up disbursing the amount twice, but it would be reflected only once in the updated account balance. Clearly, the bank does not want that to happen. Therefore, checking the available amount and then subtracting to the request amount from the available amount is grouped into the same transaction executed as one unit, without the possibility of someone else interfering. Unfortunately, in network management, supporting through transactions, or in the database scenes, for management operation is very difficult. This is true not only for the transaction that span multiple devices, but even only a single device or management agent is involved. Fundamentally, the reason for this has to do with the fact that a management agent provides only a view of the real device, without actually having the real device under full control. Management applications need to account for the possibility of interference. For example, this could be a network administrator who simply logs onto a device and effects changes manually using the CLI and circumventing the management applications. Likewise, between the query for the state and the action based on the response, the state might have already changed. Management communication exchange involve time delays, and the world does not stand still in the meantime. Network control protocols might interfere, physical components might fail. There are myriad possibilities why things are unexpectedly change. According, there is generally a certain fuzziness associated with management transactions. Management applications need to take this into account, adapt to those limitations, and be prepared to handle exceptions. This is one of the reasons management applications can be so quite complex. For examples, application logic of provisioning applications typically involves the following step in addition to the provisioning operations themselves. Verification steps before configuration operations are applied to the network, including syntax as well as semantic checks to increase the likelihood that the intended operation will succeed. Manager-initiated interactions. Validation steps after configuration operations have been applied to check whether the operations had been intended effect, rollback of the operations is required when part of the management transaction fails. Rollback refers to the undoing of the effects of operations that could succeeded but that need to be taken back because other operations in the same transaction have failed. Rollback is rarely supported by management agents and is instead generally the responsibility of the management applications. In many cases, management applications are arguably better off this way. After all, rollback attempts might themselves fail. Also, some operations cannot be truly rolled back because they have already had an effect. For example, if an existing services are disconnected because support was reconfigured, or if the device were rebooted as part of any actions, those effects could not be undone. The best that can be done is such a scenario as actually a roll forward, bringing the network into a configuration state that is well defined. Instead of having network effectively left in an undefined state, in much cases, it is preferable to have management applications deal explicitly with such scenarios. The transactional properties of management agents can be enhanced in several ways. A discussion of those techniques is beyond the scope of this book. This is the best to remember that management transactions are an important and non-trivial category of interactions between managers and agents, requiring careful design on the side of management application. If someone claims to support a management transaction, be sure to ask what is actually meant by this. For example, it might involve a facility that allows the grouping a set of commands and providing syntax checks for all commands upfront before the first command is actually executed. It might also involve attempting some limited form of error recovery when things go wrong. Um, as Figure 7-15 illustrates, this can be extremely useful but is still not quite the same as the type of guarantees and well-defined properties that are known from database transactions. We should not conclude this selection without briefly picking up on the part of the SL provisioning scenario that we did not discuss. It concerns the need of provisioning applications to also provision a connection endpoint of the aggregation router in addition to the configuration step required at the DSLAM. This scenario is typical of service provisioning applications that in many cases need to successfully configure several managed devices to provision a service with the possibility of any of the steps failing along the way. It seems that the topic of management transactions applies not only to operations that are directed at a single management agent, but to management applications operating across devices as well. Initiated interactions, events, and event-based management. The second big category of interactions between managers and agents concern events. Here, the agent initiates communication and sends the manager an event message to bring sometime to the manager's attention, usually about some type of occurrence or event that has occurred. For example, the event message could be an alarm that indicates that the device is overheating or that it has been experiencing a failure. It could indicate that a new configuration setting has just gone into effect. Or the event message could bring to the manager's attention that someone has tried to unsuccessfully log on the device several times in a row. a possible indications of a suspicious activity. Basically, event messages correspond to interrupts that help managers to do their jobs better. Event messages are sometimes also referred to as straps, specifically in the context of SNMP. A quick note on terminology. Stick- Strictly speaking, the actual event that occurs in the real world needs to be distinguished from the message that is used to communicate the event. In practice, the term event is used for both the event and the message, thereby blurring the distinction between them. When it is necessary to explicitly distinguish between them, we refer to event occurrence and event notifications, respectively. Contrary to a response that is sent following request, the agent determines on its own when it needs to send an event message without waiting to be asked first. For this reason, event messages are often also referred to as unsolicited communications. Of course, unsolicited is not the same as entirely unexpected. In general, the device is configured to send event notifications to a specific manager agent. Event taxonomy. Events are used for many different purposes, notifying managers of many different types of event occurrences. Accordingly, they can be classified into a number of categories. The most common ones are as follows. Number 1, alarms. Unexpected events indicating a condition that typically requires management attention. Number 2, configurations change events. Events that informs of a configuration change that has taken effect at the device. Number 2, threshold crossing alerts. Events that informs that a performance-related state variable has exceeded a certain value, pointing to conditions that might require management attention to prevent network and service degradation. Number 4, lagging events. Events that occur regularly and that are expected to occur during the operation of a network that indicate what is currently going on the network. In general, those events do not require an operator's attention but need to be logged so that they are available for further analysis when needed. Lagging events can be related to the following. Operator activity. These events might be relevant for security and purposes and provide trails of any commands that have earlier been directed at network service devices. System activity. These events provide for detailed execution traces. They can be useful in debugging a network, but in general are simply turned off. Activity on the network and services. These events record the occurrence of services-related events, such as the fact that a call was initiated and can provide data used for accounting. Information events. Any other kind of event to be useful, any events include at the list of following information. The system from which the event originated. A timestamp of when the event occurred. The type of event that has occurred. Event detailed information. Beyond these, events might contain additional information such as sequence number of the event. In addition, each event category is typically associated with some very specific information that pertains only in this category. For example, a security event that reports operator activity also identifies this operator session, the command that was attempted, and possibly the response result. The following selections describe alarms, configuration change, events, and threshold causing alerts in more detail. Alarms. Alarms communicate that some unexpected event has occurred that likely requires management attention. For example, a card in a router might have failed, requiring the card to be physically replaced. The temperature might be too high, and there is a risk of physical damage to equipment. A port might have detected unexpected loss of connectivity with the other side of the line. Every alarm is an indication of an underlying condition. An alarm rarely is an event that reports the onset of the condition or the remission of the condition, in which case the associated alarm is really a clear event. The alarm then corresponds to the sound that is played when the LED first goes on, whereas the alarm clocks correspond to a different sound that is played when the LED goes off. This means that an event that indicates that a device had to reboot unexpectedly is not an alarm. The fact that it is rebooted might have occurred unexpectedly, but it is not the same kind of condition that persists over a period of time. That would be an informational event that is sometimes referred to as transient alarm. Alarms must include the following additional information. The type of the alarm. This is the type of event that happened. Alarm severity. The alarm severity indicates the impact of the alarm. For example, whether it is affecting services. In some cases, dealing with the lower severity alarm can be a higher priority for a network manager, such as when it affects an important customer. Possibly a broader category for the alarm. Distinguishes between communication alarm, quality of services alarm, processing error alarms, equipment alarms, and environmental alarms. More information exists that can be useful, but it is often not provided by network devices today. A proposed repair action. A list of other alarms that might be related to the same problem. Additional information that might help in troubleshooting what caused the alarm, such as the settings of certain configuration parameters at the time of the alarm.
Configuration. Change events are a major factor in enabling event-based management, as opposed to polling-based management. Without configuration change events, applications must go periodically to every device and check whether the configuration has changed, typically by retrieving the relevant configuration information. This is the case even if no configuration information has changed, which generally is the vast majority of cases. Therefore, this is an extremely wasteful approach, impeding the skill of management applications, burning management communication bandwidth, and wasting CPU cycles on the managed devices that could be spent routing packets. In addition, when changes do occur, management applications have a stale database until the next polling cycle, which could be hours later. The problem is further compounded by the fact that provisioning applications need to make sure that they operate on configuration information that is current. This requires additional information retrieval requests to be issued before sending the configuration request itself. To increase the chance that the configuration operation will indeed have its desired effect, this means that the device and management application must process even more requests and responses than they would otherwise have to. Ideally, configuration change events include the following additional information. First is the configuration change that was applied. The configuration parameters and managed objects affected and their new settings. The originator of the change request, for example, the identifier of the management session that initiated the configuration change. The third one, the request identifier. In case any issues come up later and the precise steps that led to the configuration change need to be retraced, unfortunately, comprehensive configuration change events are in many cases not available or do not include the entered information about the configuration change. For example, configuration change events may simply notify the manager that a change has taken place without indicating what the change actually was. Threshold crossing alerts, or the TCA, indicates a management system that some monitored MIB object or management variable has crossed a certain pre-configured value, a threshold. It enables network management to be proactive rather than reactive. TCAs enable you to build management applications for monitoring that are driven by events, rather than having to rely on centralized polling to monitor network health. Again, this results in management applications that can scale orders of magnitude better than applications that rely on polling. In addition, event-driven applications are more responsive because they do not have to incur the delay that is associated with polling cycles. TCAs are useful in many situations, such as in proactive fault management, where the crossing of certain thresholds could be indicative of impending problems. Instead of waiting until the problem actually occurs and impedes services and users, the operator can take preventive measures. TCAs share certain properties with alarms, most importantly the fact that the crossing of a threshold corresponds to the onset of a certain condition. Accordingly, as with alarms, TCAs can clear. This means that a TCA should also be sent when the condition of a cross threshold no longer exists and the value of management variable has dropped back to an acceptable level. TCAs should include the following information: the name of the threshold or MIB variable being monitored for threshold crossing. The next one is the value of the threshold and whether the threshold has been crossed or cleared. The case for event-based management. The two fundamental communication patterns exist in the monitoring of networks, polling-based and event-based. The polling-based, the monitor relies on periodic requests and responses to monitor the state of the network. Polling-based, the manager relies on periodic requests and responses to monitor the state of the network. Event-based, the manager relies on event messages that the agent sends automatically. The significance of the event-based pattern is that, in general, it is a lot more efficient, less wasteful, and more scalable, and it allows applications to be much more responsive than is the case with periodic polling. Therefore, wherever possible, event-based management should be a pattern of choice. The characteristics of the considerations that influence the use of management interactions patterns and that ultimately impact management interface design are: first, the number of required communication exchanges for a given task. Each exchange results in interrupts at both the management application and the device, encoding and decoding of payload, possibilities of errors requiring special handling. In addition to the consume management bandwidth and computation resources that are needed to fulfill a request. In event-based management tends to be more efficient than management that relies on periodic polling. The second one is timeliness. Is management information required in real time or near real time within seconds? Or is it sufficient for managers to obtain it in non-real time processing during nightly batch operation? In the latter case, volume-based management may be just fine, but if it is important for management application to stay current with management information from the network at all times, event-based management is generally required. The third one is request processing capacity on the managed device. How many polling requests can a managed device handle without impeding its other functions? Being capable of sending proper events that can shield the device from being polled with high frequency. Next, wastefulness. Management interfaces and communication patterns should be defined so that little waste occurs, avoiding the exchange of data that is effectively thrown away. For example, retrieving a large amount of management information just to identify a small fraction that has changed constitutes waste. Next is available management bandwidth. The amount of management bandwidth required is directly related to the number of communication exchanges and the amount of management information exchanged. In many cases, event-based management is more resourceful regarding management bandwidth because management information is communicated only when something of interest to the application has occurred. Unnecessary management requests thus are avoided. Then next is management application scale. How much processing is required by the manager to obtain the information that is really needs? With management that is based on periodic polling, the management application often has to do much more work than with event-based management. Reliable events. To allow management applications to be truly driven without needing to rely on polling when events are available, those events need to be reliable. This means that a management application must be confident that all event occurrences are indeed reported through event messages and that no events are missed. The following techniques are used to make management events reliable. The first one is use a reliable transport protocol over which management events are communicated. This approach is the most straightforward and is very effective. Its only limitation is that if the transport connection is down or the management application suffers a failure until a new transport connection is established or the application recovers, events can still be lost. This is comparable to when you are participating in a phone conference. The conference connection may carry perfectly everything that is spoken. Nevertheless, if one party temporarily walks away from the phone or accidentally disconnects from the call and has to redial into the conference, you will have missed anything that was said in the interim. The second one is add sequence numbers to the event information and provide the capability to replay or retrieve events upon request. If events are numbered consecutively, a gap in events numbers allows application to detect that messages have been lost and recover them using the replay capability. The last one is require events to be acknowledged. This means that the agent needs to retain events until it receives an acknowledgement that they have been received. If an acknowledgement is not received within a certain period of time, it should resend the same event messages. The main drawback of the approach to acknowledge event is that although it is effective, it places a significant burden on the agent. Not only does the agent need to retain a memory of event messages that were sent, but it needs to keep track of which messages are safe to discard because they were acknowledged and of when to transmit events. On the difference between management and control, unlike manager-initiated communication, events do not involve the request. The agent simply sends the event without asking anything in response from the manager. Remember that the network needs to be capable of providing its function independent of its need to be managed. If it were to ask for something back from the manager, if the agent was making a request in a peg, this fundamental principle will be violated. Of course, there are cases in which a device needs to make a request to another system without a communication service the device provides will not properly function. For example, a device might have to request another system to translate a phone number into an IP address so that it can direct a call to the proper recipient, or it might request to be assigned an IP address so that it is able to send and receive data traffic. However, in those cases, the other system is not considered a management system, but a controller that itself constitutes a part of the network. The corresponding communication exchanges involve not management traffic but control traffic, usually involving dedicated control protocols, not management protocols. Put simply, managed devices generally do not make requests, whereas control devices often do. As a side note, while we are on the topic, another difference between management and control is that control typically involves much more stringent performance requirements than management. Network control requires responses typically in the sub-second range. For example, a phone call that is being dialed must cause the phone on the other end to ring pretty much immediately. Management applications, on the other hand, have more relaxed requirements and can typically afford to take at least a few seconds to carry out a task.